What skill that you currently have
Yeah.
would get you back to being $100 million entrepreneur?
So it's a really good question. I think it's actually stacking skills. So a lot of times, like when this question gets asked, basically the assumption is that you have to stay in the same vehicle. And so like the fastest way to make $100,000 is not the fastest way to make $10 million. But I might make $10 million faster if I started with $100,000. And so if I have zero, then I'm going to do something that costs zero capital and is pure skill, which is exactly what that was, right? Now to make, let's say to actually start running those ads, I might need $1,000. And so it's like, I might drive Uber for $1,000, get my 1,000, then spend the 1,000 on ads to make my 30,000, and during that process, I can reinvest that to get the 100. Okay, great. Now I've got the 100. Now with the 100, I can flip that into, and the key of each of those is that none of those are really businesses per se, and that like I can just walk away from them whenever. I don't have ongoing delivery or ongoing commitments. And so that gives you a lot of flexibility. And I mean, I think there are a lot of entrepreneurs, at least the ones that I know, have had these moments where they needed to generate a lot of capital in a short period of time and have a few kind of like fast money skills that they don't flex normally because there's caps to them, right?
What I think is cool about entrepreneurship too is we can all do it. You have to find your unfair advantage. One of your unfair advantages is you're very good at paid promotion and getting to the masses, right? That was never really my unfair advantage. I think there's two different ways you could do this. One would be promotion. So are you an incredible salesperson to go direct to a ton of people? The other way is partnerships. And I think you can think of these different ways. Promotion could be B2C often, which is like going direct to consumer. Often partnerships is B2B, going to a few big people. I think of partnerships as employment, which is a very fast way often to make money too. Like Jack might make way more millions with you than he does individually. And so my background, when I didn't have any cash, I didn't know how to go to people directly. I didn't know how to do paid ads. I wasn't sure how to do promotion, which is a volume game that you have to be good at. So I went towards partnerships. I said, I can get to fewer, bigger, faster. I can't get to many fast. And so I think there's like two paths to making money quickly if you don't have any. And the first path has less risk, but perhaps mid-sized returns. And that is go find the best entrepreneur, founder, business builder you can find, who you can still get to on a daily basis in some way, and go work for them. Learn as much as you can, earn as much as you can. As you learn more, ask for more continuously over time. This is how, Sheryl Sandberg is one of the richest people in the world, and she's never had her own business, right? She's only worked for other people, and she's doing just fine. So I think that's the first way. And that would be what I would call partnerships or employment. And then the second way is to go do it yourself, right? Which is high risk, but probably highest reward. And in that instance, you have to go and figure out how to get people to buy your things continuously over time. But like when I didn't have money in the beginning, I'd gotten out of finance. I didn't want to work for somebody else again. I was pretty miserable. I had worked for 1 billion hours for people in investment banking and asset management. And I had massive golden handcuffs. Like I made a lot of money and I had no brilliant idea. I didn't have a business idea. I had no idea what to do next. And I'm pretty risk averse, actually. I was like way too scared to go do what you guys all did, which is start businesses from scratch. And so instead, I partnered up. I went to another company that needed to raise capital and get a few investments in it. And I went to them and said, I can raise money from a few of these people that I know. If I do that, can I negotiate a little bit of equity in the company? Can I negotiate upside return for the money and dollars that I bring in? And I want to be a partner in the company. And so you don't always have to start your own thing. If you can negotiate with partnerships, I think sometimes you can skip to the front of the line if you're not a great natural salesperson, or marketer. And so you really just need to decide which one. And neither of them are better than any other. They're just better for you.
The amount of resources you have access to is a factor of knowledge, network, and reputation. So at all times, you're trying to build your knowledge, you're trying to build your network, you're trying to build your reputation. Now, a lot of people are worried about the knowledge, but they've probably done interesting things already in their history. They're probably, if they looked over the last 3, 4, 5 years, they could say, actually, I've done all sorts of things, but I've never told anyone about that. Right? I've never actually I've never posted on LinkedIn, I've never posted an update telling people what I've done. So therefore, I've actually got things that could build a reputation, but I've never leveraged that reputation. If you're a young person especially, network is actually, you've got a superpower with network. And I'll tell you why, because if you go to a private bank that normally banks people with 3 million, but you say, I want to be an entrepreneur, I want to come to some of your entrepreneur events that you host, they'll bring you along because you're an ambitious young person. If you go to a large accounting firm and say, do you ever host big events? Could I attend some? Can I jump on a newsletter that lets people know about the events? they'll invite you along. And I'm talking about like Ernst & Young and KPMG. Every single week they've got some thing that they're doing in their offices. They've got experts, they've got rich people, they've got all that sort of stuff happening there, and they'll invite you along. So you've got this ability to build your network, you've got this ability to leverage your reputation. I actually don't think that you can make good decisions about the knowledge on your own. I think you need someone who's at the higher level to tell you this is the skills you should go for. These are the things you should do. So for example, at the time that Alex did ads, it was a great time for doing ads. Mm-hmm. But now fast forward to today, it's probably better to study AI and to bring that to the table. So sometimes those things change. So let's say you figure out what is your reputation, what can you talk about when you're in front of people. You go networking, you go to a few of these events, you outreach, you get yourself in front of some people, and you actually ask the question, what kind of skills do I need? What sort of, I need to build my skills, I need to build my knowledge. What do you think would be a valuable thing to do? Because people who are at that next level up, they're noticing what they need, they're noticing what's hot, what's not. So they're going to be able to teach you or guide you. And to Codie's point, you want to have a mentor in your life. You want to have someone who's been there, done it. You want to, partner with a bigger organization and get some of those. Before Kim Kardashian was Kim Kardashian, she was Paris Hilton's assistant, and she learnt the playbook for being famous, and then she took it to a new level. So she did an apprenticeship, and then she applied the apprenticeship.
One of the things that all of us have in common is we make content. And it's almost a bit of an elephant in the room that no one's really doubled down on. When I asked what you guys think is the most sort of like undervalued skill or the best place to invest in yourself, I was actually expecting you all to say, start making content for a variety of reasons, not just because you want to build an audience so you have more customers, but actually, and I can see it on all of you, it's helped you to think better. It's helped you to communicate better. It's helped you to sell better. When you get that chance to sit down with that investor or that rich person, you said earlier that if I'd sat old Alex here, one of the big differences is this one's much more focused, concise, articulate. So I'm wondering what you guys think of that content as a undervalued, underappreciated skill in the world we're heading in.
If I'm starting today rather than when I had, zero, there's still a huge amount of attention that sits on social media, if not more. And there's even more demand for content now than there was. And so you can supply that and get compensated for it. And you'll have to do repetitions for a period of time until eventually you get good. And then you can develop an audience, and then you obviously can sell things to them.
I think content's a little bit of an interesting one because content works when you've got intellectual property to leverage. So I remember Alex popped onto my screen the first time and he says, I've sold my company for $40 million and I've got nothing to sell you. I'm just going to tell you how I did it. Codie's the same. She's like, I was working at Goldman Sachs, but then I left Goldman Sachs to earn more money through laundromats. I'm like, that's interesting. That's fascinating, right? So I'm going to watch that content because there's some interesting intellectual property there. My channel took off when I started talking about I've done 7 startups that went 0 to $1 million in the first 12 months. So it's that ability to have some intellectual property that people are going to want to get to.
I can think of a bunch of examples of creators that hadn't done anything, but their ideas were the value. So if you think of someone like George Mack or even James Clare or lots of other of these sort of like Jay Shetty, online writers who...
Jay Shetty had a great one, which was, I've got monk wisdom for the modern world. Mm-hmm. And we've got Ali Abdaal. I quit being a doctor to be a YouTuber. Mm-hmm. So there's these little hooks that work. And
does everyone have you don't have to have sold a business for tens of millions I think, made millions from...
I think there's some intellectual property that you've got, but bear in mind that there was a different time where you could just burst onto the scene. And we now have AI-generated content. So if you imagine like airplanes and they're at the airport and the fog rolls in, and if you're on the ground, it's very hard to take off. But if you're already up in the air, it's very easy to stay up in the air. And it's kind of like the AI content that's coming in is that fog, right? There's just going to be thousands of AI-generated content pieces just flooding onto everyone's feed. And if you don't have a really good hook, you're just not going to drown out that noise.
You guys must all be thinking about this.
I have so much... All right. So, so one thing I think everyone has to decide on if they're going to start making content is, am I an entertainer or am I an educator, right off the bat? And so I think AI content for sure will have tremendous leverage on entertainment, more so than education. Because the big underlying thing that Daniel's hitting at is that you have to have proof, right? Like an AI avatar cannot come in and say, I sold my company for free. They can't. They didn't do anything because they don't exist in the real world, which is why, in my opinion, like the absolute foolproof method for making educational content is do epic shit and then talk about the epic shit you did. Period. And so like I'm in LA. So yesterday we also we had the school games winners come out, schools platform that hosts online communities, and the winner of the last school game, so 90 days, he got to like 300 and something thousand a month from a YouTube channel that he started 16 months ago. So he started 16 months ago making videos about AI. Now, what was his interesting thing? So he was just always into AI, learned about the tools, and then he started helping small businesses for like $1,500, $2,500 a month, where he would just help them implement these automations that would save them money and time. And then people were like, well, how did you do that? And so he just basically would just explain each of the automations that he made for each of these businesses on his channel. And he made one video a day explaining one of the automations. And then he said, if you want, I have a group that's whatever, $300, $400 a month that shows you how to build the same automations. To your point about the education is like, you just need some proof. And it doesn't, like, you don't have to, like, the bigger the proof you have, the wider TAM you'll be able to reach, because more people will be, I'll just put the words impressed. If you just are in your 20s, and to be fair, you've just quit Goldman Sachs, it's like, that is enough of a thing that, because it's a 1% type deal, right? But you can 1% through achievement. But the other side that I think people widely underestimate is you can 1% through volume of work. So if I said, I read 200 books last year, let me show you the 200. They're all dog-eared. Let me tell you what I learned. Like, I'd be like, well, shoot. Because I think everybody wants a bargain on time, right? Like, I went on 100 speed dates. This is what I learned. It's like, well, I don't want to go on 100 dates, but like anyone can do that. So it's either 1% achievement or 1% effort. But this one you can do, and even if you have zero outcome, there's still stuff that you'll learn, and then people find interesting that you can build an audience around. And if you do that enough times, eventually you do achieve something that is interesting, and then that kind of becomes permanent. But at the end of the day, like, proof always beats promise.
I also think anybody can go viral online with one of two things. We've talked a lot about experience. So if you do have experience, if you built $1 billion in assets under management business, gone to Goldman, built 7 startups, that's incredible. That's not normal. That's totally fine. But that means that you could just have the everyday other E of starting the experience. I think we obsess on expertise. Expertise is the way to make content online and make millions. But what about just the experience? You could say, actually, I've done nothing. I'm a college dropout. I've fucked around a lot. I don't have much figured out, but over the next year, I'm going to try to make $1 million. And you can go just as viral, if not more. I mean, a good example would be like Ryan Trahan, who I love, who's in Austin, Texas too. And Ryan is just like, I'm trying stuff and this might fail and I have no idea and you guys can come along. The proof could actually be you just trying a thing and it not working one way or the other. And so I think the only problem with this type, which is experience as opposed to expertise, is that with expertise, you have attention and intention, aka intent to buy. Whereas if you're just experiencing things, you might have attention, but what are you going to sell? Because you don't have like a value derived from it. Where's your intent? I mean, if you think about who are the biggest creators online? OnlyFans, the Kardashians, what are the biggest websites online? Porn sites. That's a lot of attention, but the intent to buy is going to be low for any of those over time writ large. And so I think you have to ask yourself, okay, if I get a ton of attention, let's make sure I'm really thoughtful on what I get attention for. And then let's think about once I have that attention, where do I actually have some sort of expertise or value that I can trade in order for people to have an intent to buy? And I think about it like this. Rihanna, huge star, right? Big celebrity, billionaire now because of Fenty Beauty. Drake, giant celebrity, arguably more views, more hits than Rihanna, worth 1/5, 1/6, 1/8 what Rihanna is worth. Why? Because he has tons of attention, but he hasn't actually done much to get intent to buy from him. And so Rihanna's just categorically better, if we define better as bank account and scoreboard on net worth, than Drake is at monetizing their intention. And so I think that a lot of creators online think too much about views, likes, subscribes, and don't think very much about how do I monetize on top of this? Because nobody stays relevant forever online. And so I think while you're in the spotlight, you do have to think about how you're going to convert that funnel in some way.
That's a really great point. A lot of the people you see blowing up online, they do have a back end that monetizes it because, to your point, it costs money. I probably spend $40,000, $50,000 a month just on retainers of people who are working on that stuff. And
content.
Yeah, content-related stuff. And, because I have businesses that can monetize that, then it's worth doing. But it's hard to compete with that if you don't have a back end. The other option is to work with someone who does have a business and they do have experience, they do have something to talk about, but they're busy and they need someone to project manage this. Because one thing that's happened is that to the traditional business owner, this personal brand thing and this building a content empire that builds your business, this is brand new to a lot of people. So there are plenty of people who've got a $50 million a year business and they're going, oh, should I show up online at all? Maybe I should. And they're just starting to tiptoe into the water and they've got a story, they've got a back-end business, they can monetize it, they can allocate budget to it. You could be the person who does that. And if you did do that, you would be one of the very special people in their life. I had a guy come to me a couple of years ago and said, Daniel, I just cannot believe you've written 5 books at the time, you've got 7 different companies, you've got all this stuff going on, and you've got a few thousand followers. And I've had a look online, you get like 10,000 views a month. And I'm like, yeah, but I'm busy, I'm running my businesses. And he came to me and said, I will project manage you into the millions per month. And he just literally picked this up, a guy called Martin, right? And he just said, I'm going to do this. I'm going to turn up at your house, do a day of filming every month. I'm going to edit it. I'm going to chop it all up. I'm going to do all this stuff. And I'll project manage the whole thing. Now, the two of us are very close now. We've got a good relationship. And he's now got an idea for an AI startup. And I'm going to back that.
Every single one of you watching this right now has something to offer, whether it's knowledge or skills or experience, and that means you have value. StanStore, the platform I co-own, who are one of the sponsors of this podcast, turns your knowledge into a business through one single click. You can sell digital products, coaching, communities, and you don't need any coding experience either, just the drive to start. This is a business I really believe in, and already $300 million has been earned by creators, coaches, and entrepreneurs just like you have the potential to be on StanStore. These are people who didn't wait, who heard me saying things like this, and instead of procrastinating, started building, then launched something, and now they're getting paid to do it. Stan is incredibly simple and incredibly easy, and you can link it with a Shopify store that you're already using if you want to. I'm on it, and so is my girlfriend and many of my team. So if you want to join, start by launching your own business with a free 30-day trial. Visit stephenbartlett.stan.store and get yours set up within minutes. If you guys were starting from zero today, with AI in the picture and all of these platforms and the way things are going, I've spent a lot of time thinking about the next big opportunity in content, and I think about the next big platform. Where would you be starting today based on who you guys are and the skills that you have and the things you're interested in? It's probably a better way of saying it. Would you be on LinkedIn posting once a day? Would you be on TikTok making videos? Would you be on YouTube starting a channel? Would you start a newsletter? And with AI in the picture, I think it changes the answer because content is going to become very easy to make. So where does the value accrue to? Like, where does the value move to in a world where a kid in Mumbai could make a reel or a quote picture now with ChatGPT? So where is the value going to accrue, and how are you going to milk that cow? How are you going to capitalize? Like, what is the one thesis you have about the future of content that you haven't told anybody yet? Tell me.
Well,
I'll tell you mine.
I want to ask a question too for everybody at the end of I'll give you my quick thing. One, I will say and I'd be curious if you all agree. When I first started making content, most people that I knew thought it was really cringe, actually. They're like, why would you make content? If you've actually had any success that you supposed to have had, why would you be so idiotic as to be on the internet making content? It can't be true that you've done these things if you're making TikToks all day. And I think they totally missed the boat that like the 21st century currency is attention, and attention could be bought with ads, or attention could be bought in a different way, but through organic content creation. And so you go like cringe to content to conversion. And actually, I think all of us would probably agree it was a pretty good play. But like, I'm sure, did you guys all get laughed at when you first got on the internet?
Of course.
Yeah, right?
Never.
Still get laughed at now.
I still get laughed at. So like, I just want to prepare. If you get online, be prepared. People will think you're idiotic. And
your friends.
The
shedding period where you transition to
100%. And people who are serious for whatever reason have not figured out that there is a huge arbitrage opportunity with being known. Even if you don't care about the views, and all I have as something that's a differentiator is that if I ping Steven, you'll respond to me because I am somehow I have some presence online. Same with Alex, same, right? With all of us. And so one, I just want to say that up front because it will suck. I'm in these creator groups, and at some point, it just happened yesterday. I'm in a group with like some of the biggest creators in the world, and all of them were listening. I mean, maybe 50 responses of a moment where everybody hated them on the internet. It was super dark. They couldn't stop watching and reading the comments, and they felt like there was like a fight or flight situation from a bunch of strangers. And so I think it's worth just saying content can have a little bit of a downside, and you got to like protect against that, but like also go full fucking bore into it because who cares? You'll be forgotten anyways. And
embarrassment is the price of entry, as they say.
Yeah.
And we've all faced that and had to go through that to get to the other side. If you love the Diary of a CEO brand and you watch this channel, please do me a huge favor. Become part of the 15% of the viewers on this channel that have hit the subscribe button. It helps us tremendously, and the bigger the channel gets, the bigger the guests.